I was recently faced with one of those really hard, really big decisions. For me, it had to do with my career path and deciding whether or not to commit myself to a very new, very different direction. If there's one thing that I learned from the 18 years of being in business for myself, it's that these big, hard decisions, they come up from time to time, and they really do make an impact on the bigger picture trajectory of your career, of your business, maybe even your life. And so, having gone through a couple of these really big trajectory changing decision moments in my career, I really do feel the weight of the importance and the weight of taking ownership of these decisions when they come up, because we do have to own them. We have to own how we approach the decision making process. And ultimately, we have to own our final decision and the aftermath. Now, I can tell you, I'm 2 days out from having made my final decision on this thing. And man, I feel a relief. I feel some freedom. I feel some excitement and motivation because now I know the decision has been made and all I need to do is move forward. And I learned a lot about myself on the other side of this decision. But a few days prior to that, I was having a rough time. I was deep in it. I was feeling the stress. I was feeling the weight and the uncertainty. And I was really questioning a lot of assumptions that I had about myself, about my business, about my career, about this opportunity that I was faced with. And then it started to compound because I started to become a little frustrated with how much I was struggling with this particular decision. So not just dealing with the uncertainty of which direction to take here, but the frustration with how much weight and how much time and energy and focus this decision was pulling from me. But this wasn't the first time that I was faced with one of these big, hard decisions, right? There have been a few times where I made the decision to sell and exit my business. Earlier in my career, I made the decision to voluntarily leave a good, steady salary position to go out on my own and start my own business, become self-employed. And so having gone through this decision-making process several times in my career, especially a few that did make a huge impact on the trajectory of my career, both good and bad. Some decisions I look back on that I'm happy with those decisions, and some I do end up regretting, and I learn from them. But I have picked up an insight or two or three about what it means to own these decisions and how to move forward with them. And so I want to share those with you. The first is to get clear on exactly what type of decision you are faced with here, because that really matters. The second is about asking advice from others and the right way and the wrong way to do that. And the third is to understand the struggle that you're experiencing behind the decision and how you can use that to your advantage. Okay, so when one of these hard decisions comes up, the first thing that I'm thinking about is, what type of decision is this really? Is it an easily undoable decision, or is it something that's going to have a permanent outcome that I can't undo or walk back? The truth is, the vast majority of seemingly really hard, difficult decisions are undoable. There's very, very few decisions in life or in your career or in your business that you truly can't walk back or undo or quit and try the other direction. Sometimes you can even undo or change direction pretty quickly after realizing that you've made the wrong call. And so when you recognize that, even though this might be a big decision with a lot of high impact, if you're confident that at the end of the day you could easily undo it, then your best bet is to try to make the decision sooner rather than later. Waiting around and waffling and hoping for new information to arise is not going to make that decision any easier. In that situation, the wrong decision is no decision. You're much better off just moving forward one way or the other, whichever way your gut is pointing you to, and going with that until you realize that maybe that was wrong and you can iterate, pivot, undo, quit, and try another direction. Not the end of the world. It happens. But then every now and again, you are faced with one of those decisions that is actually permanent. In my case, a few times in my career, I made the decision to sell and exit my own business. Can't undo that one. Once it's sold, once somebody else takes ownership, I can't get it back. And I have to own that decision. And it's those decisions where I know that the outcome truly is permanent, Those are the ones that I have a lot harder time dealing with. And those are the ones that I think do deserve more time and more deliberation and taking a bit more care before you truly commit. Don't overdo it. And I still believe that just waiting and waiting for more information to reveal itself is not going to be very helpful. But spending the extra time can help you uncover what's truly important to you. Now, there's one caveat here, and this almost tripped me up this past week when I was dealing with another one of these big decisions. Sometimes they can disguise themselves as a permanent decision when in reality, it is an undoable decision. The options that you have might feel like once you choose one, you can't really walk it back or you can't do it over. When in reality, sometimes it just takes a bit of time to be able to undo it. Or maybe it's a little bit more complicated, but at the end of the day, you can change course. That can happen too. So it's just something to be aware of. Another thing that I've picked up about the decision-making process is about seeking advice from others, seeking advice from friends, from advisors, maybe from family. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. The wrong way is to ask others, what should I do? Tell me which decision to make. That is just too much to ask of anyone else because there's no way that any other person can possibly know what the right decision or wrong decision is for you. Only you know that. Only you can actually determine that. There are so many variables and factors at play, even if it's someone who has gone through similar decisions in the past, or even if it's someone who is further ahead than you or more experienced or someone that you look up to. You might really trust their opinion, and you should, but still, there's no way that they know the right decision or the wrong decision for you. Really, no matter what it is. Ultimately, it's a very personal thing. Does that mean you shouldn't seek advice? No, of course not. I actually find immense value from reaching out to people that I trust and respect, and especially people who have navigated the path that I have, like my fellow business owner friends. But what I'm looking for when I seek advice, and I think this is a better way to approach the advice seeking process, and that is to just look for their reactions. I mostly phrase my advice in terms of like, here's what I'm thinking, here's where I'm leaning on this, and these are the factors that I'm weighing for me and what they mean to me. How does that land with you? I'm looking for reactions. I'm looking for impressions, and those reactions can help to nudge me in certain ways, or at least point my attention to certain data points that I might have been a little bit blind to, or I might have not been looking at as closely. Just this past week when I was asking for advice from some friends on this big decision I was facing, they were able to shed some light on some key data points that I was sort of glossing over and not giving enough importance. And it just made me give those items a second look. And that started to inform where my gut was pointing. And it did help my final decision take shape. And, when seeking advice, especially from those closest to you, like your family and close friends, typically what they care about is your happiness. And that's what I'm looking for when I seek advice from those closest to me is they know me on a personal level, so they know what would make me happy and what would not make me happy. Or at least they're able to question, like, is that really going to make you happy? And that's what matters to them most. They're not here and they're not in a position to think strategically about, well, should we move this chess piece or that chess piece? What does that mean for your career? At the end of the day, they don't actually care about that. What they care about is, am I happy? Right? And ultimately, that's what I care about too. And so that's why I seek advice from those closest to me. Sometimes that's the hardest part about making a big decision is like, I don't even really know which way is going to make me happy or regret. So that's how I think about the advice piece. All right, the last insight that I have on the decision-making process is something that I think I just picked up on this most recent go-around with facing a decision, and that is understanding the struggle behind the decision. Why am I struggling to make this decision? Understanding that why, understanding where the struggle comes from can actually work to your advantage. So here's what I mean. At the start of this video, I talked about the compounding effect of the stress that goes into deciding one way or another, right? First, you have the surface level Should I choose path A or path B? But then it starts to compound and you start to think, why am I having such a hard time deciding one way or the other? Making these decisions should be easier. Why am I struggling? I found that most of the time, that struggle is rooted in the fact that you're personally leaning toward the path that is more unconventional. Because the conventional path, the seemingly correct path, the path that others probably look at and think is correct, and the path that most people probably would take is not the one that you and your gut and your instinct are leaning toward. And so that's what's causing the second guessing and questioning of yourself. Like, why am I feeling and why am I thinking in this unconventional way? That's what happened to me in this most recent decision, where one path was a career opportunity that I know that thousands of people would dream of landing this type of opportunity. And I was actually in a small group of people who could potentially realize that as a new reality. But I was struggling with this decision because of that fact. It seemed so attractive by all these different measures. But why was it not a no-brainer for me? It's a no-brainer for a lot of other people, but why is it not one for me? And that's what led me to the realization that my instinct, my gut, my personal values, what I truly want, doesn't align with that path. And that's why I ultimately decided to go the other way, which is unconventional. And it was actually that struggle that led to what clicked for me and what led me to the final decision to decide against that approach and go this way. And once I made the decision, I felt that freedom. I felt a new sense of motivation. I'm feeling that fire to move forward in this reality that I have accepted, and I'm excited. And so I'm on the other side of that. And so that's how you can actually use your struggle under the weight of a big decision to find what it is that's most important to you, find what you value, and follow that gut instinct. Because at the end of the day, that's always your best bet. So that's how I think about these hard decisions in my business and in my career. And, having owned and run my own business for the last 18 years, most of that bootstrapped and self-funded, which has its own set of challenges, I can tell you these decisions keep coming up. And so I actually recorded another video a couple of weeks ago about what it is to bootstrap a business and what that actually means to me. So I invite you to check that one out next and let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.